Perfect.
Hi, friends. How are we today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. Are we learning lots of stuff? Good content, good speakers so far? Yes. And he's going to be your favorite. It's totally fine. Today is going to be really good because it's making and receiving offers and it's negotiating, which is one of the top 4 things that we're supposed to be doing. You know, it comes right after lead gen, lead follow-up, go on appointments, then negotiate contracts, right? So here we are. As always, we got to be engaged, ask questions, participate. And this is Trey Watson. I'm super excited. He's one of our ALC members and currently in charge of our wealth committee.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, awesome. All right, guys.
Very cool.
Just text me when you need me to come down and switch your slides.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, how are we, everybody? Do we have people on Zoom too?
Not yet, but it's open.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What session is this for you all? How many sessions have you been in so far?
This is the third one.
The third one?
No, it's the fourth for the class.
This is the 4th one?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. How many are there total? Do you guys know?
just this week.
Okay, cool. So one more day?
Yeah.
You guys are knocking it out all in one. Okay, busy week. Cool deal.
Well, they're just
Um,
taking the highlights of like the original program, you know, the
Okay.
most important stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Cool deal. Okay, perfect. So who in here has not done a transaction yet? Okay, 2. How many 1 to 5 transactions?
So I had one, but it fell out of contract due to financing.
Okay, so you've been through the process a little bit
Just
so far?
once.
Okay,
So far.
how about you all?
That's great.
3?
I'm over 10.
Very good.
Cool.
I was gonna say, you've done plenty. Okay, cool, perfect, awesome. Okay, so today we're talking about making and receiving offers, so the fun stuff, and then we're gonna get into negotiations a little bit later on. For those of you that have done contracts and you get to count, how much negotiating would you say has gone on in those? How much negotiating did you have to do?
A little bit. Mine, I feel was fairly easier. I had the buyer and
Okay,
that another person on my team had the seller and we worked together pretty good. So I don't think it was that
okay,
tough.
cool. Who's done a transaction in the last 2 months? Okay, how much negotiating did you all have to do?
Sometimes a lot.
Sometimes a lot?
I've only negotiated a couple times with investment packages. I didn't have to, not on a residential one.
Okay, cool. How about you?
Not much, really.
What are you seeing?
So,
Some, okay, more than what you have had to do?
Oh,
About the same.
most recently, in the last 2 months?
Yeah,
It was pretty straightforward, but
Okay.
there was one of them we did have to come down a little bit in price.
okay, got it, cool.
Obviously.
And we're
But this
back to
summer, they
that.
were going over.
Yeah,
so-
100%, and we're back to that. So for you all that haven't done transactions, I don't know if you guys heard about the COVID time and really like last year and before that, everything was selling super fast and there was really no negotiating because the sellers didn't have to negotiate. They could just say, no, we're gonna go with somebody else that's not gonna negotiate. We are back to a normal time period where we are negotiating and it's not a scary thing. If you listen to the news media and you listen to all that stuff, the world's going to hell in a handbasket and everything's falling apart. That's not the way the real world actually is. How are we doing, guys?
how are you?
Good. That's not the way the real world is. We're going back to somewhat of a normal real estate market. We're still really low on inventory. And it's on paper, we're still in a seller's market. So there still is things are moving quicker than they would in an even keel balanced market. So probably less negotiating than there was in like 2008. And the craziness times where buyers had all the power. However, if you're a buyer's agent now, the good news is we get to go out and we get to get our clients a little bit better deal versus just saying yes to everything that the sellers want. So we get to be creative, we get to have fun with it, we get to go out and get them a little bit better deal. On the seller's side, that doesn't mean that the sellers lost all the power by any means. We still, as a seller's agent, we still have quite a bit of power because there's not a lot of listings still. There's more than there was. However, we just have to know how to go in and negotiate those contracts. So making and receiving offers, we're gonna go through the process. So if we haven't been through a transaction yet, this is gonna tell us how we do this. And if you have been through transactions, hopefully you'll get some good ideas on how to make things go a little bit smoother. Do you all have like questions about this specifically? And I typically, when I do this, I kind of like blow through the material and it's more of a conversation. So I'm gonna ask you guys to participate and talk and chat and all of that stuff. What ideas do you have about making and receiving offers? What questions do you have to make sure we touch on everything? And I'm sure it all is covered in here, but does anybody have anything that they're coming into today looking for specifically?
It's, you know, another idea of how to handle different scenarios.
Okay.
I don't, because I've never really had to do that yet, but
Okay.
I know it's probably gonna come.
Okay, cool, perfect. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna blow through it then. Like I said, I like this being an open conversation, so feel free to interrupt me and just start talking, chat, whatever it is that we want to do. I don't know how this thing works. Okay, we're gonna use this. Maybe. How do you work this thing? Anybody done this before? Shanna, there we go. Okay, so you have been through quite a bit, it looks like. So we're making and receiving offers and we're also negotiating offers today. Y4C2Ts, you guys have been through this quite a bit already. Okay, so here's the agenda for what we're going through in this first section. The offer process, so we're gonna see an overview of how everything works. If you haven't done it before, that's gonna give you a really good idea to know how everything, as far as the timeline goes. We're gonna work on preparing the offer, we're gonna write the offer, we're gonna present the offer, and then we're gonna switch to the listening side, receive and respond, and then go through our recaps and ahas. So, Bo Bennett, author of PhD, I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation. I actually would take this a step further and say that we really aren't even having to persuade anybody. We are educators here, is the way that I like to think about it. If you have a client, they've already told you what they want. Our job is to help them get what they want. We are the experts and we're supposed to know how this process works so we can educate them on how the process works so that we can then make the best decisions that are going to put them in the best spot. The word persuade is much better than manipulate, obviously. However, in my opinion, if I've got somebody that tells me they want to buy a house, that step's already done. Now I just have to tell them how it works and what's going to put them in the best position possible. Okay, so the offer process. Offer process is pretty simple. Buyer makes the offer first. The listing person or the seller has already named their price on the MLS, right? If we're going through that process, we can see their asking price on the MLS. The buyer goes and looks at the property. We've already been through that. And then the buyer is going to make an offer. So how we're doing that, if you haven't been through it before, is we are actually going to get the residential sales contract. And we're filling that out. That is how we are making an offer. We fill out our terms on there as the buyer, and then we present it to the seller. So we're the buyer's agent. We're in charge of writing up that offer on the residential sales contract, all of the documents that need to go with it, presenting that to our buyer and explaining it to our buyer. And then we are having them sign it and we are sending it to the seller, right? Then the seller gets to go over it and look through it and see what terms they like or don't like. And they will respond in one of three ways. Typically, if we have negotiating going on, the seller is going to be sending a counter offer. This means that the seller says, no, I don't like the terms of this contract. However, we can tweak a few things. We're going to send it back to the buyers and see if the buyers will agree to our new terms, right? The seller can also accept the offer. So we, as the buyer's agent, have written the offer up. The buyer signs it, says, yep, that's what we want to offer. We give it to the seller. They say, yep, looks perfect the way it is. We're going to go ahead and sign this thing. And if that is the case, they go ahead and sign it. Then we're on to the contract to close period. We're scheduling inspections, getting the contract to the lender if there is one, all of that fun stuff. Third option, and this is going to start happening again. This really didn't happen a ton in the past 3 or 4 years, but now that we get to negotiate again, the seller can just straight up reject the offer. And so I had one of these, we actually just closed on this lake house yesterday. However, we had multiple offers where this house is a little bit run down, needs a lot of work. We had several different buyers come in and submit offers that were well below our asking price, and seller just says, no, it's not even worth our time to negotiate here. And we're talking, we were listed at 450 and these offers were coming in at 200. So way, 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 way under what the seller expects to get for the property. There's some agents that say, no, we're gonna go counter everything, but if we're so far apart in price, I see this as there's no need to go waste our sellers' time if we know that we're not even close. Black and white version of this contractually, the best way to do this is to send that buyer a counter offer with full price listed in the terms of the price and whatever other terms you want to change. That's the right way to do this. The real world, the way that we do this, the way that I do this is I just go back to the other agent and say, hey, seller said no dice on that offer. We're too far apart. If you guys want to come up on your offer price or offer terms, whatever it is, feel free to do so. And we can do that verbally until we have an agreement. The black and white way to do it is put everything in writing, have everybody sign everything. So we can track, we have a paper trail of everything that's going on. Real world situation. We don't want to waste people's times. We don't want to waste our times. There's no sense in writing up a counter offer if they're way, 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 way off and we're not even close. Go ahead.
What's the best way to avoid litigation or to avoid back and forth, counter offer so much?
So if it's a time management standpoint, in my opinion, it's going back and doing it verbally. So we say we're listed at 450, we have an offer coming at 200. The way that I would choose to do it is I would go back and call the other agent, say, hey, chatted with my seller, presented the offer. We're not even close on price here, which is fine. It's none of this is confrontational. It's just black and white factual. Hey, we're too far off on this. We're not sending a counter offer because it's too far off. If you all would like to make a different offer, you're free to do so. That's the way that I handle it. It's all verbally over the phone. I don't like doing stuff in text messages because things get misconstrued and you can't tell tone of voice. And I don't like doing it that way. If you had a compliance person down here and we wanted to make sure that every rule was followed, and you were doing things probably the proper way, it would be responding in writing saying, and on that offer, there is a line that says seller rejects offer. You have to go in and get their initial on it, send it back to the other party. The other black and white side of the contract is if you just don't sign it and they have an acceptance date written into the contract, that offer then becomes void after that acceptance date has passed. You no longer have a contract anyway. So if you wanted to, you can go in and get the seller's initials on the reject line. If it was me, I just go call the other agent, say, hey, we're not going to take this and we don't have a counter for you. If you want to come up with a different offer, you can. However, we're just too far apart. And we don't want to waste anybody's time here with doing all the counter offers and stuff like that. And the other agent on the other side is gonna say, yep, nope, totally get it. No problem at all, more than likely. So, there's not a black and white answer there. I know that I didn't give you a straight shot. However, in my opinion, the best way to do it is just call the other agent, say, hey, we're too far apart on price. The seller doesn't even want to counter. If you want to up your price, you can. So does that give you a little bit of an idea at least?
Yeah, lots of
Okay.
different ways to approach it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
I have a question for you.
yeah, go ahead.
I've had this happen to me. I was in a multiple offer situation. And as soon as I received the offer, they, within 30 minutes to an hour, said, no, cancel our offer.
Yep,
Is that normal? I mean, you can do that?
you can do that. Yeah.
They sign and everything?
Yeah, you can rescind your offer at any point in time. I could send it to you right now and 2 seconds later. If you're going to do that, if you're going to take back an offer, I always say put it in writing, text or email. So it's not just on the phone. If somebody were to sign it and take you to court, the judge has no proof that you said that you wanted to take your offer back. So put it in writing somewhere. Yeah. Any other questions there? Okay, perfect. So we send an offer, the seller can either counter that offer, they can accept the offer, or they can just flat out reject the offer. Okay, make sense? Yes? Bingo. Any ahas? Okay, we just went through that. Nothing? Okay, cool. Okay, now we're gonna work on preparing the offer. So when we're preparing an offer, the biggest thing as far as advice would be is talk through all of the terms with your buyer or your seller before you're actually putting it in writing, so you know you're on the same page and you don't have to go change stuff later on. We're trying to save time here. So we've gone and seen a property. We are now, our clients have said, yep, we like it. We want to write an offer. We're now heading back to the office to write that offer. Ensure the property is still available. This is much easier now. However, for those of you that were doing it 2 years ago, you know how fastly properties sold, and it could go at any point in time. So on the way back to the office, what I do, and I still do this, call the other agent and talk to them. Make sure that the property is still available and they haven't accepted an offer on it yet. B, build rapport with the listing agent. So, and we're gonna get into this, but the whole thing here is the better you can get to know that listing agent, the more that you're gonna be able to understand the seller's motivations. And if you can get to the seller's motivations, you know, before you even send an offer, what non-negotiables they have. And that way you know what terms you can negotiate for your buyer, what you can try to make better by giving the seller what they want. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're building rapport with the listing agent. We're gonna inquire about activity. This is another thing as well. If the property has been on the market for 2 or 3 months and hasn't gotten shown very much, they haven't had any other offers, they're gonna be a lot more likely to take a lower price for their house if they haven't had a lot of activity on that house. If they need to get out, and this is part of talking with the listing agent, what's important, asking them what's important to your seller. If they're saying they need to get out of it quick, it's been sitting on the market for a while, they've got a house elsewhere that they're trying to move into and they've got to get out of this thing pretty quickly, you can negotiate better terms for your buyers. And there's nothing wrong with asking the other agent questions. And what I really like to do is ask a question and then shut up and let them talk. Because 90% of the time, they're gonna give you way more information than you asked for. And doing that, you're gonna, again, really get to figure out what's important to that seller so you know how to negotiate, how to get them what they want, but also get your buyer better terms. So again, we're making everything win-win situations, right?
So if you're a dual agent, then what each party shares with you, you can't share with them. But if you're working for the buyer, you can only share what information you can share. What's
If you're only working for the buyer,
yeah.
you have an obligation to your buyer to share everything that will be beneficial to them.
To the buyer, okay.
Yeah, same thing with the seller. If you have if that listing agent has given you, the buyer's agent, information that is gonna benefit your buyer in the negotiating process, you are obligated to share that with them. To put them in the best case possible and give them the best terms. Did I answer that the way, did that make sense?
Just restate it.
If the listing agent gives you information that is going to allow your buyers to make a better offer for them and get them better terms, you are obligated to share that information with them so that they can make the best offer. for
Okay,
them.
got it.
Yeah,
If the listing agent has just shared with you that this person is trying to get out of there, they've got another house or whatever,
yeah.
is that something they're supposed to be sharing with you?
Maybe, maybe not. And it's outlined in our listing agreements and our buyer's agency agreement. So in our listing agreement and buyer's agency agreement, both, there's a section that says motivating factors. And can you share motivating factors with other parties? On all of them, I always say yes. Because if there is I'm gonna make up an example here, but if there's a reason that my seller's needing to get out of town, and by telling the buyer's agent that, somebody who's just shown the property, that helps us receive an offer. That's our whole job here is, as a listing agent, is to receive an offer, right? And then we can go to work and negotiate. So if there's something that I can tell the other party that's gonna help us receive an offer or get our offer accepted, then I'll go get personal with that other agent and I'm not gonna share anything that's gonna put our clients in a bad position. or hurt our clients.
Right.
But if I can build a relationship with that other agent, those are when the best deals happen. And that's the best chance of getting a deal to close, is when you have a good relationship with that other agent. Most people from the outside world think us as agents, we're sitting here butting heads and fighting with the other side, right? Y4C2Ts, the first one is win-win or no deal. We're trying to achieve the same goal. So we're not fighting anybody. Are there times where we have to push a little bit and dig in a little deep and figure out how to get our clients what they want? Yeah, there's tough times, there's tough conversations to be had. But 90% of the deals that we do, we're working as a team, and at the end of, and when we go to closing and we're signing all the documents, buyer and seller are friendly and sharing, they're talking and, hey, we love the house, we love triggers, blah, 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 whatever it is. 90% of the time, everybody's happy and everybody loves what just happened because one person got to achieve a goal and the other person got to achieve a goal. So if we can build a really good relationship with that person, that's gonna put us in that's gonna allow us to negotiate really well, and get our clients to their end goal. So I danced around that a little bit,
Yeah,
but
fine.
that makes sense? Okay, cool. Okay, so inquire about other offers on the property and status. If the property fell through at any point in time, ask about that. Most listing agents, if you see a property that has fallen through, most of the time it's because of an inspection report. A lot of the times that listing agent will go ahead and just share the inspection report with you, to where you can go through and look at it and you know exactly what you're getting into. It helps them because it saves them time of having to go through that whole process again, and the buyer not knowing and them wasting more time on the market. So ask all of the questions that you want to ask. They can say yes or no to any question that you ask. They can decline to answer a question. And we saw this a lot through the multiple offer period, where I show a client a house, I say, yep, we want to write an offer. I call the listing agent, he says, we've got 45 offers. Okay, cool. What's your best offer? And there were listing agents out there that would say, nope, I'm not telling you anything, just give us your best offer. And it's a negotiating tactic. And there's other listing agents that would say, oh, here's our best offer, here's all the terms. If you can beat it, great. If not, don't waste your time writing an offer, kind of deal. So feel free to ask questions. Go in and ask that listing agent what's going on, why the property fall through. If there are multiple offers, don't be scared to ask them what are the terms of your other offers? Because a lot of the times they'll just tell you, and you can go straight back to your buyers and say, hey, here's what the other offer is at. You want to write an offer that's better than that. And if it's a no, it's a no, and we can move on, and we can move on to another property.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What is the reason that an agent, like the listing agent, would not disclose the highest offer that they have in the moment?
Yeah.
I never understand why.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one, and there is a logical answer to it. In my mind, and we didn't really have this, I never experienced this until the COVID period where it was going on every house. What we would have is we have 3 or 4 offers. What the listing agent, by not telling you the terms of the other contract, is hoping that when you write your offer, you're just gonna shoot for the moon and you're gonna end up $5,000-$10,000 over the best offer that they have already. So where I think, and we'll get into this on the listing side, where I think that is valuable to do as a listing agent is if you have multiple offers and your best offer is at asking price or below asking price, then I think it's a great time to go to, if the buyer's agent asks, what's the best offer? You tell them, we're not disclosing the terms of any other offers. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the best terms for our client in hopes that they will write an offer that is better at or higher, sometimes way higher than that next best offer that you have already.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Okay.
I think happening the opposite, like.
And that's how it's happened for the past few years. And I disclosed offers as
Okay.
on the listing side. Whenever we had offers that were over asking price and somebody else was saying, hey, what are the terms of your offer, of your best offer so far? And I go back to them and I say, we're $10,000 over asking price right now. And we're waiving inspections, whatever it is. And even in that time period that was going on every house, the general public didn't see it every day, and the people that were buying houses didn't see that every day. So if you could imagine going over to the Thompson car lot, and asking the dealership, hey, how much is this truck? And they say $20,000. And I say, okay, I'm just gonna pay $25,000. That'd be crazy, right? If they've already told me the price and then I go say I wanna offer more. It doesn't make sense logically. And so in that market where we were having all of these offers over asking price, it's not natural for buyers to just come in and say, yeah, I'll go pay $15,000 more than what the asking price is. So for my sellers, by telling the buyer's agents what those other offers were, because they were $10,000, $15,000 over asking price, I'm giving them the chance to go write an offer that's $1,000 or $2,000 more than the best offer that we have. Because in my mind, that's what gave my client the best opportunity to make the most amount of money. And if I didn't tell that buyer's agent what the terms were, they may only offer $5,000 over asking price, right? Which is crazy to think about. However, if they don't know how high it really is, then they don't know how high they have to go. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, ask the listing agent how they want to receive offer. I would assume what they're talking about here is what email address do they want the offer to go to? If they have a team member, do they want it sent to a transaction coordinator? Where do you want them to, where do they want that offer sent? So you know you send it to the right location or email address. So then what we're gonna do, we're gonna obtain the buyer's pre-approval letter from the lender. If we don't have this already, I like getting this as soon as that buyer gets pre-approved with the lender. I want that lender sending the pre-approval letter to me, so I'm in contact with the lender already, and I have it in my inbox ready to rock and roll. Review the MLS and the tax records. So when we're writing offers, we want to make sure that we have all the information for our buyers. Go check the whole MLS listing to make sure there's nothing weird or funky in there. Make sure you look at the terms, make sure you look at what the sellers are wanting to keep. So are there reserve items on there? Go look through all the documents to see if there's anything disclosed that the seller is wanting something that is abnormal, as well as the tax record. So we can go back and tell our buyers, hey, here's what the taxes are. Here's what you can expect for your monthly payment to be on those taxes. Produce a comparative market analysis on the property. So if we're working for a buyer, one of our obligations to them and one of our services that we provide is we don't want to go buy a house that's overpriced, right? We want to make sure that they're getting either a market value deal or below market value deal, if that's what we're after. So we want to make sure and check comps that there are houses in the area that have sold for a similar amount. What this also does is it allows us to expect any appraisal issues that might pop up. If we see that all of the houses in the subdivision have sold for $150 a square foot, and this house is priced at $180 a square foot, we can go dive into it a little deeper and understand, hey, why is this house selling for so much more than the other houses? And is this going to cause an appraisal issue down the road? Because appraisers are looking at the exact same houses that we are whenever we look at comps. Obtain a seller's disclosure statement and other needed documents. So these are going to be on the MLS generally. If they're not, you can go ask the seller for them or the seller's agent for them. You're going to need a seller's disclosure statement, even if they're not disclosing anything. There's a box on there for them to check that you can go look at, make sure there's nothing funky on the seller's disclosure statement. The roof's not falling in. They've got a volcano sitting under their house, something weird like that, right? Okay, so ahas, and I'll leave this up here while we've got it. Well, no, I'm not. Okay, any ahas? Hey, this thing works. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Did I just speak English?
So the buyer's pre-approval and the MLS tax records, all that stuff, 7 through 10, you don't send that with the offer, but you keep it in your file.
Seller's disclosure statement you do, because the seller will need a copy of the buyer's signed seller's disclosure statement. There'll be other things like a measurement disclaimer, which we've started doing in the past few years, stuff like that. If it needs a lead-based paint disclosure, if it was built before 70, whatever the year is. If it needs a lead-based paint disclosure, buyers will have to sign that and the sellers will all need copies of those. So you will have to send that with your offer. However, tax records, no, they don't need anything like that. The seller doesn't need a comparative market analysis on their own home. Some compliance companies, and I think Murney does this, I think Murney needs a copy of the MLS sheet signed or initialed by the buyers. So there will be some instances where you have to send that. It is a pretty good protection thing too, if you have your buyer's initial, the MLS information sheet. Because that shows that they looked at it as well and they reviewed all the information. And that covers you from a liability standpoint. If they, you're not gonna have somebody come back and say, hey, I thought XYZ was included. You can go back and say, nope, it was not included. We talked about this and here's where you signed. Does that make sense?
Something I, as a realtor, have to give my potential buyer before they disclose personal information.
That would be the buyer's agency agreement and the Missouri broker disclosure form, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, go to
Is
Jim
the
Redon's
broker's
contract class, but yeah.
Disclosure form, is it a different form?
The seller's disclosure statement?
No, the brokers.
Yes, that is. And so that's a form that's on there.
Forms you are,
Yeah,
forms are us, okay.
yeah, whatever it is. And it explains all the different types of agency in the state of Missouri. And then it has little check boxes for you to check and say, hey, here's what we're doing, kind of deal. So,
Okay,
make sense?
yes.
Cool. Okay, anybody else? Any ahas through that? Okay, perfect. Now we're on to writing the offer. So we've gotten back to the office. We've talked to the listing agent to find out what's important to the seller. We've talked to our buyers, and this is really where we're going into, and this is gonna be all of the items that we're gonna have to make sure are cleared and spelled out on the contract. So number one is price. That's the most talked about one, right? We wanna know how much is the buyer paying for the property, and then the terms of that. So are we putting down any earnest money? And this is covered in here too, and I guess this is the rest of the terms. So we'll just go through these as numbered. Seller's disclosure, we just talked about, we're gonna have them go through that. On that seller's disclosure statement, the seller will list any items that they know that is wrong with the property as it sits. That's also any items that have been wrong that they have had corrected. So if we're working with sellers and they are filling out that seller's disclosure statement, what I like to tell my sellers is, you don't have to disclose anything that you don't know. So you don't have to go digging, but if you do know about something, you must disclose it. Even if it has been fixed, if there was a problem and it has been fixed, put that on there and then write in that it has been addressed and it has been fixed. And when was it addressed? A common question from sellers is, if I have to write on there that I fixed something, is that gonna scare buyers off? No. We're all human. We all make mistakes. Houses all have problems. Even if it's a new property, there's gonna be something that an inspector finds wrong with it. And if we can say, hey, this was a problem, we have this fixed now, there's no other issues, buyer's gonna say, great, they got stuff taken care of. It actually puts their mind at ease. Conveyances. So anything that comes with the property. I don't know why curtain rods stick out, but that's one of the biggest things that we have issues over is curtain rods. So are the curtain rods staying with the property or are the sellers taking the curtain rods with them? The next big one is gonna be refrigerators. And if you do enough deals, you will be buying a refrigerator at some point in time for your client. We want to avoid this. This is not the best practice to buy a refrigerator, obviously, every house that you sell. However, there will be times where we say, hey, yes, the sellers, and this is another example, but sellers accidentally took something they weren't supposed to take, and the sellers really wanted it, but we didn't have that conversation up front that the sellers wanted it. And so we end up having to buy something. I bought a few refrigerators and it hurts and it is no fun. So make sure that you go through that with the seller's agent and our buyers on what do you want to stay with the property? What are the sellers taking with them and what are they willing to leave? Make sure you have that conversation so you can avoid buying refrigerators or curtain rods. Number 4, earnest money. This is also on the first page of the contract. That is how much is earnest money is the buyer putting down on the property. Most of the time, I would say over 50% of the time, we really don't do earnest money here in our area. There are some areas that do. I know St. Louis does earnest money a lot. California, Texas, the coast are all pretty big on earnest money. And I think that it's generally like 1% of the purchase price is what they use for how much earnest money they put down. If it's up to me, I don't put earnest money down and I don't really care if there's earnest money. If I've got a seller, because quite frankly, if the buyer's gonna back out, they're gonna find a legitimate reason to back out. They're gonna get their earnest money back anyway. There's plenty of ways for them to get out of the contract that's gonna allow them to do that. So that is where that's at. Number 5, due diligence and inspection period. We wanna make sure this is one of the biggest things to slow down on with your buyers, to explain to them, and this is gonna help you with issues later on. It's important to explain to your sellers just as much, but since we're talking about buyers, I'm gonna use buyers as the example. So with the inspection period, we have to slow down and explain exactly how this works. As the contract is written, if we don't fill in any boxes or change any day numbers, the buyer will have 10 days to have their inspection done, have the report sent back to them, and then form a list of all of the items that they want the seller to fix prior to closing, okay? We have 10 days to do that. If that inspection comes back and the inspector says, hey, it looks like the shingles on the roof are worn, but I'm not a roofer, so you need to have a professional roofer come out and look at it. If we can't get that done within that 10-day period, we have the option to add 5 days for a specialist. And that means we can have a specialist come out, extend our inspection period by 5 days, and have them take a look at what's wrong with the roof and give us an answer. So we are detailing out in our offer, how long is the inspection period and what are the terms of those day limits. Number 6, time for seller acceptance. So this is on page 8 of the contract, and this is where we write in, if we're writing the offer for our buyers, we're saying, hey, our offer is valid until XYZ date and time. After that date and time, our offer is no longer real. It becomes void at that point. And if the sellers come back after that time period and sign it after that time period, and they come back and say, hey, we've got this signed, it was after the time period, but here it is, we're accepting this offer. We as the buyers legally do not have to honor that contract because they did not accept it in the time frame that we gave to them. Does that make sense? Okay, now, yeah, go ahead.
So what, in your experience, is the average or typical amount of time to give for the acceptance?
Great question. It's different for everybody and it really depends on the situation. If I'm writing an offer and that house doesn't have a ton of other showings or any other offers on it, generally I'll give the sellers 24 hours to respond. Now, that is another good question to ask the listing agent when you are gathering information. You're saying, hey, what's important to your sellers about this? You can also say, hey, how much time do you guys need to respond to this offer? There will be, typically everybody can DocuSign and we can get it done within a matter of an hour or two. However, I just had one. My seller lived in Marco Island, Florida. I spent an hour at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night trying to explain DocuSign before I gave up. And I just said, I'm going to email them to you, print them out and send them back. There are people out there that can't use DocuSign. It's hard for us to explain how to use it. They're away, whatever, the bad cell service, whatever it is. So DocuSign's tough. So we might need a little bit more time to accept an offer on the seller's side if we have somebody that's a little bit harder to reach. So great question to ask the listing agent, hey, how quickly can you guys get a response from this? And that's going to give us essentially our answer for how long do we give them to accept it.
Okay.
If we are in a shorter time periods are aggressive, right? So if I showed a house at 3 p.m. today, and I sent them an offer at 4:30, and I said, hey, we want this thing signed and back to us by 8 p.m. tonight. That's a pretty quick turnaround. And there's negotiating power here in doing that. If you say, hey, we're giving you a good offer, we're gonna walk away, we're looking at other houses tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday, and we wanna go look at other houses, so we wanna know tonight if you're gonna take our offer or not. Put a short time period on them for them to accept it, to kind of push the envelope, and they can either say yes or no, and we're saying, hey, we're serious, we're not wanting to mess around, we're gonna go look at other houses if you're not gonna accept this, and that puts a little bit of pressure on the seller to say, okay, fine, they're serious, we need to just go ahead and take this thing. Does that make sense the way I explained it? So if you're giving them a longer period, it's kind of like, and typically longer periods are like, you send them a little bit lower offer, you want them to mull over a little bit, stuff like that. So the shorter time period, the more aggressive you're gonna be. Normally that doesn't irritate sellers and tick them off too bad, but you're being aggressive, the shorter time period. So 24 hours is what I would say is pretty reasonable. Yep. Do you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Going back to inspections.
Yeah.
If you list a property as is and the buyer is still doing inspection, so we need to write an amendment or something like this, like stipulating that the seller's not gonna be responsible for repairs?
Yeah, if that's a term that you want to add in there, 100%.
If I don't add anything, that
Mhm.
means the seller's gonna repair whatever
It
is
doesn't
wrong
mean they
with it.
have to, it just means that the buyer can back out if the seller doesn't agree to repair.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so it's protection for your seller. If you don't have it written in there that the buyer is buying the property as is, all that means is that, and it depends on the other boxes and stuff that's checked. And there's multiple ways that a contract can be laid out. If it says it's as is, but they still have their inspection rights, that means that they can back out without asking the seller to fix anything. And if the seller still says, no, I'm not fixing anything, they have the right to back out. Now, there is the as-is rider now that they have attached in there, and so if they checked buyer waives all inspection rights or whatever, however it's termed in there, then they don't have the right to back out.
So when you list as is, you have to have the as is inspection waiver or?
You can list it and then change it later on. So you
Okay.
don't have to have the as-is rider.
Okay.
However, if your seller expects that you're selling this thing as is, and they're not making any repairs,
Mhm.
you need to have that either written into the special agreements of the contract or have that as-is rider.
Okay,
Make sense?
yes.
And for more contract questions, ask Jim or Don. I'm not a broker and I'm not
Okay.
being held liable for anything that I say that's wrong. Okay, got it. Does that answer your question though?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool. Okay, so, time for seller acceptance, financing terms, we're going in there and we're getting with the lender to see what terms were they having, and there's a spot in the contract to fill out financing terms, so if the terms get worse, the buyer then can back out of the contract because they're not getting their normal financing. Buyer pre-approval, we talked about that already, closing date. Obviously, when are we going to the title company to sign in, when do we have to have all of our contingencies filled by? Home warranty, is the seller providing a home warranty, or does the buyer want to provide a home warranty? Or are we gonna do none of the above? I don't know if we go into this in negotiating, however, home warranty is something that I like to use as a negotiating tool. There's some agents that like to have their listings always offer a home warranty because it does look better to the buyer, and it does, 100%. The way that I choose to use the home warranty is I like to save it until the inspection time. And even with my buyers, I like saving that home warranty and adding that home warranty into the inspection period. Especially if there's some, HVAC's looking old, ovens having issues, whatever it might be. I like adding that home warranty in because it's typically like $500. And if I'm a seller, I can also use that to negotiate something out. So HVAC's still working, but it's looking a little old, and you have a buyer come along and says, hey, you've got to do all this stuff to the HVAC. We say, we're not gonna do that because it's still working, but here's a home warranty. And typically that's enough to have the buyer say, okay, fine, that's cool with us, as long as we're doing something. Repair limits, this isn't one that's really used a ton, but it is on the repair item list, or if we're selling a property as is, there will be times where you can go right into a contract. If there's X amount of stuff on the inspection report that the buyer is gonna ask to be fixed, they can only ask up to a certain dollar amount worth of repairs. There will be times where some people will do that. Any other special clauses that might be randomly in there, and then any addendums that need to be in there as well, like as is riders or whatever else it might be. Talk through the offer. So we're gonna review the contract with our buyers. We are making dang sure that that buyer understands everything that they are signing to avoid issues later, and so that they know what they are getting into. I like to put this part pretty bluntly and speak pretty directly whenever we're working through the contract, because it is black and white, and I want to make sure that everything is crystal clear. The two big parts, especially for buyers that are getting financing, we want to walk through the appraisal process. So what does the appraisal process look like for that buyer? Because their lender is going to require an appraisal be done. Explain their options with the appraisal. If that appraisal comes in low, we go back to the seller and say, hey, we want to drop the price. I want to explain to them that the seller does not have to drop that price to that amount. And we then either have two options, is we can negotiate with that seller and we can bring a little bit extra to closing if we have to, or B, that's where we're protected and we can walk away from the deal if the seller is not willing to drop that contract price in a low appraisal situation. Two, the inspection period. explain the inspection period to your buyers so they know exactly what's going on and how it works. This is a great time to set expectations, especially with first-time home buyers who have never seen an inspection report before. It's gonna scare the tar out of them whenever they get an inspection report that's 60 pages long, that's full of stuff that is wrong with the house that they are buying. This is the biggest investment that they are gonna make in their lifetime, more than likely, and they just got a bomb dropped on them with 60 pages worth of junk about their house. Okay, we want to explain to them, hey, there's gonna be 60 pages worth of stuff on this. Even in our new construction homes, we're gonna have inspection reports that are 20 and 30 pages long. It's like this all the time. We're paying the inspector to do a job, which is find imperfections in the house. A lot of that inspection report is actually just gonna be data on the house, so that you've got it for your personal use. However, we're paying them to find imperfections with the house, and they're really good at their jobs, and there's a reason that we hire them to do this. They are gonna find every imperfection in that house. That does not mean it is a bad house. That means we know what we're getting into and what potentially the seller might be willing to fix for us. This kind of softens the blow whenever they get the inspection report back. They know to expect that there's gonna be this huge laundry list of things that are wrong with their house. And we know that not all of them are life-ending situations, right? So if the outlet plug cover is cracked, the house isn't gonna fall down over that, right? So they know that there's gonna be little stuff to pop up, that's gonna pop up. When it does pop up, it makes it much easier for them to process through mentally. Okay, so we're gonna review details like price, closing date, inspection, contingencies, conveyances, all of that stuff. We're explaining everything to our buyer and making sure that everything is in there that they want to be in there. Know what is essential in your area, know standard or common terms for offers in your area, and avoid rookie agent mistakes. If you haven't read the contract, read the contract. They said this on Friday in the meeting. Everything that you hand over to your buyer or seller to sign, you should have read through and you should understand. If you don't understand it, that is totally fine. That's why we have classes about this stuff. That's why we have brokers that can explain all of this stuff. That's why you can go pretty much knock on any door in the office and anybody will help you understand a certain part of the contract. Go read through all the documents and make sure you know what you're having people sign. There's a reason that the police force, they have all their new officers get tased before they go out and tase somebody else. They know what they're doing and what it feels like and what could possibly go wrong, right? Don't actually tase people. However, have them read through it and have them understand what they are signing. Ahas, questions?
Don't tase people.
Don't tase people. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Probably the most important thing to take away from that is don't tase people unless you have to. Anything else? Any other questions over that? Okay, cool. Okay, we are now presenting the offer. So after we have gone through the offer with the buyer, we have our buyer sign it, right? We're then going to present it to the listing agent is who we are presenting it to. So we're gonna double check that all of the documents are filled out correctly and that they're all there. We're gonna follow all of the instructions that have been given a lot of the times on the agent remarks on Flex. Or if they sent emails, whatever it might be, make sure that we're doing everything the way that they want us to do them, meaning the listing agent, so that we know that we're submitting it to them correctly and they get it in the way that they need to get it. Label all documents clearly. So if you use DocuSign, whatever it is that you can rename the documents in there so that whenever you send them, there's a name on each document. You can pull it from your computer, you know what you're getting. Order documents logically, put them in an order that makes sense. Email summary. So, and I do this too, but I really like to call the other agent. And that's the next one. So in the email that you're sending the offer with, put a summary of that offer so it's easier for that listing agent to understand. Again, the outside world thinks that the listing agent and the buyer agent are sitting there with boxing gloves on trying to beat each other up. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to a win-win situation. So if we can make it easier on somebody and it appears that we are easier to work with, they are then going to be easier to work with, and it's reciprocal. So put an email summary of the whole offer so they know what they're getting into. Notify the listing agent. I always like to call the other agent and walk them through our offer. And if there's anything funky in there, I like to explain it and say, hey, here's why I did this. What's your thoughts on this? It's a collaborative deal. Tell them what you guys want, so you know that you can get it and explain why this stuff's important. Add all documents to command, consult with your buyer, so make sure you put everything in command and you're compliant. Consult with your buyer, let them know the process, okay? This is one of the biggest questions from buyers is they get their DocuSign, they sign it, I say, great, send it to the other agent. If I just say that, they're like, okay, so what are we waiting a day? Are we waiting an hour? Are we waiting a year until we hear back from them? Explain the acceptance date to them so they know when to expect an offer or an answer by, right? So it doesn't get 2 hours down the road and all of a sudden they're calling you crying, say, oh my gosh, they haven't responded. They hate us, kind of deal, right? That's not what we're doing. Explain the terms of the acceptance deadline so they know what to expect and when they should hear back from you by. Ahas. Questions? Perfect. Okay, receive and respond. So now we're kind of switching gears a little bit. We're gonna receive and review the offer checklist. We're now on the seller side, or if we're on the buyer side, we get a counter offer back. This goes for that as well. Make sure the offer is complete. So nothing will make you look dumber than taking an offer to your seller and giving it to them and half the contract isn't filled out. And we're like, what in the world's going on with this? We don't even know how much they're offering, right? So go through the offer before you present it to your people. Confirm receipt of the offer, get offer to seller in a timely manner. So if we have that offer in our inbox, we're checking it, we're going over it, and then we're calling our seller or talking to them about when they can chat about the offer, and we're making sure that we're communicating when that acceptance deadline is, so they know when do we have to respond to this thing by. Create executive summary. There's a lot of people that will have cover sheets that they send to their sellers, so the sellers can just look through the main details and not have to go search through the contract. Again, I like phone calls or in-person meetings, so I'm going through that offer with my clients. You will get to know your clients to know, are they people that want to read every single line? If they are, let them read every single line. Send it to them in a PDF version so they can look through it, read every single line, and then have them call you so you can chat through it all. I like to call and talk to them first and say, hey, here's our offer, here's the important terms. Do you want me to send this to you so you can read through it? Liability standpoint, best case scenario, send it to them anyway, so that you can cover your rear end and you say, hey, they had a copy of it. You guys had a copy of it, read through it, tell them to read through it, and then ask any questions.
So they should get a copy, right?
Yes, and they're gonna get a copy, if they sign it, they're getting a copy regardless. What I like to do and what I've started doing is I send them a PDF version of it so that they have it, so they can pull it up, save it to their email, whatever it is, read through the whole thing, then they call me and we chat about it. So in an ideal world, if I had it my way every single time, I would call my seller and say, hey, we just got an offer in. I'm gonna send it to you right now for you to read over. However, here's the main bullet points of the terms. Going through price, going through inspection period, going through whatever it is that we need to go through. I then send it to them and I say, hey, read through this, call me back after you get done reading through it and let's chat about it. That would be the best way to do it, in my opinion. And then after they call you back and you guys chat about it, then you can send them the DocuSign or have them sign in person or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so after we've done that, we are actually, and this is technically before you call the seller, but if I have it my way, I'm gonna call and talk to that buyer's agent. They typically are just gonna send you an email with the offer. I wanna go read through the whole thing. I wanna call them and say, hey, what are the main points in here that are really, really important to you? We'll go through this in the negotiation portion of this. However, I'm calling them, I'm saying, hey, what in this is super, super important to your clients? So I can go talk to my client and say, hey, here's what they've offered. Here's what's really important to them. And I don't think they're gonna budge on, but here are the areas where I think we can go negotiate and get a little bit better terms. Call the lender, if you're allowed to call the lender, which I believe that we are. Talk to them about their pre-approval letter, make sure that these buyers are good to go and sniff out any issues that might pop up later on. Create an outline document to reference when you call a seller. Same thing here is a summary. Go through, send them the main bullet points so they can then read through it, see the main bullet points and call you and talk about it all. Make sense? Any questions?
I've had a buyer
Uh-huh.
call the lender. Is that a normal thing?
Your buyer called their lender?
Like we-
Your own? Say that
Yeah.
again.
So the seller, we received an offer and they knew what bank it was and they took it upon themselves to call the lender themselves. Is that?
Oh, your seller called the buyer's lender.
Yeah. Is that normal?
No,
No.
no, it's
Yeah.
not, but most
Right.
sellers just don't care. If we
Okay.
say, hey, they're good to go, it's a it's a local letter, we've got the pre-approval letter, most sellers are like, okay, cool, sounds good, don't think about it. I don't think that's illegal, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with them calling the lender. It's not normal though.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. Create an offer on command, your integrated high-end Keller, yada, yada, yada. Everybody know how to use command? Okay, if you don't, call Nicole. She's awesome, and I am not. Okay, receive, review, and respond to offer. So buyer makes offer again, seller responds in one of three ways. So if we've got the seller, or if we got the buyers, again, seller can do this in one of three ways. They can counter the offer back, they can accept the offer, or they can just flat out reject the offer. If they are countering the offer, that's when we go into the negotiating period, which we'll chat more about. If you're presenting this to your seller, best case scenario, buyer presents a really, really strong offer and we say, yep, this is a great offer. We don't think we're gonna do any better than this. We're gonna go ahead and just accept this. You accept it, send it back to the other side, whichever one that is, and then we're starting the contract to close and compliance process. If we reject the offer, we've talked about that already. If I'm the seller's agent, I'd say, hey, we're too far off, bring us a different offer. If they do, great, we can start negotiating from there. If they don't, it might just be their top dollar and we're not getting any better. Again, we counter, seller counters, they send it back to the buyer can then say yes or no, or make a new counter. And we're just going back and forth on this until we reach an agreement or both parties just say, hey, we're done here, this doesn't make sense, we're not gonna reach an agreement. I don't know if you guys actually have to do this. We'll do this at the end. How about that? Okay, so responding to offer. Who, you guys came in, have you guys done any transactions? How many? Okay, got it. How long have you been doing this?
3 years.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. That's awesome that you guys are in here for this and you've been in it for 3 years. Okay, so we're responding to offers. Who has not done a transaction? I know you've chatted with other agents. Okay, perfect. We're gonna save this till the end and we'll do a big role play at the end about responding to offers and all the other role plays that we're gonna do. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. Okay, ahas from that portion. Questions from that portion? Make sense? Okay, either doing a good job or I'm really boring, one of the two.
You're doing a great job.
Very thorough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for saying something and not making me wonder what you guys were thinking, because I was starting to sweat. Okay, so for those of you that have done a transaction, what's something in here that you heard that you didn't necessarily know before, or that you want to change the way that you do things? Or something that was good that you heard that you already do, that would help somebody else out?
Me personally, just noticing you saying that you sit down and go over the contract. I
Mhm.
never knew that. I
Okay.
thought once you send it, you send it, and I just tell them to read over it and make sure they understand it, but I guess that's a different way of making sure they understand everything.
Sure, yeah, and I don't know, I like being prepared when I go into conversations. I can have conversations that I'm not prepared for, but if I have the option, I'd rather be prepared for it going into it, so I can call them and say, hey, here's what it is, read through it, then let me know what questions you've got. Also, I'm nosy and I just like to know.
Yeah.
So I'm weird like that. So, anybody else have anything?
I usually just go over the phone and talk about the terms on the offer.
Mm-hmm,
And then I send the DocuSign for them to sign, so I never sent the PDF before
mm-hmm.
for them to review, so I
Yeah.
better start doing that.
Well, and it kind of covers you from a liability standpoint to make sure that they have a copy of it and they can go read through it. Again, there's people out there that want to read every single line on that contract, and there's some people that say, I don't want to read the line, just send the DocuSign. That's how I am. I'm like, just send it over and we'll do it. But I'm overly trusting at times as well. So it gives those people who want to read every bit of it, it gives them the opportunity to do that. And you don't have to stay on the phone with them while they are reading it, because there's nothing like
Yes.
sitting there for an hour and a half while somebody reads it back to you. And I'm like, "Ah, yeah, I know what it says. Just read through it and call me later." So yeah, I think it's a good way. I think it covers you liability wise. It gives them the option to read through it. And then if there is any questions, a lot of the time our clients just don't know what questions to ask or don't know what something means. So by giving them the opportunity to ask questions about something, we then can answer that question so we know we're avoiding an issue on the back end. And they're in the know and they know what's happening, they know what's going on, they know what all the terms are. And it gives us one more point of connection with them to be the expert and build another level of trust with them as well by explaining that.
I'll
So,
start doing that.
yeah. Anybody else? Anybody who hasn't done a transaction that heard something they hadn't heard before? Okay, cool. We're gonna move on then. We should be able to get you guys out here pretty early. Okay, are you guys doing this? Have you guys been doing this? Maybe not during class. We're gonna let you do it on your own.
The new one,
Uh-huh.
I think I'll schedule it next week.
Okay, perfect.
With the
We're-
25. I gotta get the autoresponder and contacts in.
Okay, who's
Get
been
the
doing
email
this
sent
every
out.
week? Anybody had been able to complete this every week and go through it? It's a lot, so it's not bad if you haven't.
Yeah, pretty much.
What has been your experience with it, as far as the conversations that you've been having?
It's been fun,
Okay,
coming from no conversations a day to 10.
cool,
And learning how to, when I'm talking to people, have them put themselves in my phone.
there you
And then
go.
I send them, a text message so they have my information.
Very cool, awesome,
I'm getting good at that, so
cool,
that's an easy way to get it.
cool. What kind of conversations are y'all having with friends and family and potential clients and people you meet and stuff like that? What's the general public's feel about the real estate market right now?
Interest rates and it's election year and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so are they scared? Is it something they're like, we don't wanna make a move right now because we're scared of that?
Or they already had a lower interest rate, why
Oh,
move kind of
okay, cool.
situation.
I see you nodding your head.
I'm still in the licensing course,
Uh-huh.
so, but, my daughter and her husband are putting off having kids because they can't get in a house, and I'm like, I want grandkids.
Oh, God.
No, I mean, not really. They're in an apartment where they could go ahead and have a kid, but they'd rather be in a house, but the
Yeah.
interest rates, and they're obviously young, first-time home buyers, and they're scared of the whole thought, so.
Cool. So are they willing to pay $30,000 more in 3 years? When that time comes around?
Right.
For them to buy a house?
That's a point, and they're not in this
30,000.
state, so it's not like I can help them with this, but
Okay.
I can certainly talk to them about that.
There you go. You can help them find an agent though, right?
Right,
You've learned about that?
no, but I will.
Okay, perfect. Make sure you help them find.
Review that, because there is a referral fee, and I'm not sure I know how to get that.
Okay.
If I refer somebody.
So it's way simpler. You go on command, and again, I'm not the command guru, I'm not a tech guy, so don't ask me to show you because I'm gonna look like a moron. But you can go into command, all you're doing is you're going to interview agents and find them the best agent for them, right? That's the whole thought process. Command has a tool where you can go in and you can see all the Keller Williams licensees, and it's laid out on a map, right? So if we have west side of Kansas City, I can go get on this map, zoom all the way into the west side of Kansas City, find the person who, whatever it is, we're working with investors, go find an agent that works with investors. If we're looking for first-time home buyers, go find somebody that can specialize in first-time home buyers and is really, really good with them. You can use command to go find agents. And then once you find the agent, all it is we're calling them and saying, hey, I have a referral. I have a buyer wanting to buy in the mid $200,000, would you accept a buyer referral fee of 25%? They're gonna say yes, because who's gonna turn that down? It's from there, and again, Nicole will be able to help you find this, because I don't know where to find this either, but there's a referral document that you go fill out with your name and the people's names, the clients' names. You send it to that agent signs it saying that they're gonna pay you 25% referral whenever that closes. They're then walking through with that client. Once it closes, they send you a 25% referral fee and you take it to the bank. Make sense? Go straight to downstream, however, whatever you want to do.
I was gonna ask you where you find the form.
Ask Nicole. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not the tech guy. I'm not the computer guy. I've got Nicole that does that, or if you wanna come up, Peyton can probably help you with it too. She's good.
You
with
don't
all of
like
it.
use command?
My executive assistant does.
Got it.
Yeah, I do not. So again, I'm not the tech guy and it's better that way. I did, so I could go make my way around command and I could probably find it, but I'm gonna do more damage in your brain than I am gonna be helping, because I'm just gonna confuse you, because I'm gonna show you 20,000 other things before I actually find what I'm looking for.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Oh, I get that.
yeah, so if you point me in a direction and tell me to run and go talk to people, I'm really good at that. Sitting on the computer, I'm not that good. I don't know what I'm doing. It confuses me.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I need an executive assistant now.
They're amazing. They're amazing. You find your strengths and then
Yeah.
find somebody else that has different strengths
Yeah.
and team
Yeah, I
up
know.
and rock and roll. Yeah, 100%. So, okay, any other questions on anything else we just talked about? We went into a few different rabbit holes there. Okay, perfect. We're gonna move on. And I bet you I have to call Shannon to figure out how to do this. Like I just said, I don't know what I'm doing. But we're gonna give it a try. No, I don't think that's up. Screwed it up already. See what I mean? You guys want this to be a great time to go take a bathroom break?
Yeah.
Or do anything else except for watch me try to work a computer?
Hi, this is Heather. Decided to join in on the fun.
Yeah.
I'm only 11.
I'm Elizabeth Goodman.
Elizabeth, good, nice to meet you.
Me too.
And you guys friends or team or?
He's doing his case board stuff
Oh, boy.
right now. He's
Okay, great.
working on getting his license.
Great.
It's fun,
Yes.
learning a lot.
We're doing online then.
Yeah.
I did that as well.
Yeah.
It's right around March 1st. So.
Yeah, how long did it take you?
I started, I don't know, because I
Yeah.
started before the holidays. And then after the holidays came, I got to it.
Yeah,
But once I got committed to it, it was like, I'm doing this so much per day and knocked it out really quickly.
cool.
But I don't know what time frame is exactly. How about you? What,
What
what was the question? Your time frame?
Oh,
Are you just getting started or?
Yeah.
Like a week ago?
week ago. Yeah. So I banged out like 3 chapters.
It's
so far.
hard to speed through it, isn't it?
It's-
Because they quiz you so much.
I don't know, and the answers to the questions are,
Is that one working
is
for
that
you?
the right
Yeah,
one?
okay.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I think it is, but I'm not sure, like they try to trick you.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Oh, look at that.
But it's so fun once you get the license, because then you can focus on the practical stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, right?
Right? Now, what do you have to do to get the license?
Yeah,
Another coffee machine.
I don't know,
They're good,
I know
though.
quite a bit of stuff because they come from government, so.
So there were
Yeah, so
two.
a lot of it kind of interchanges with real estate,
And I
especially the appraisal stuff.
trying to figure
I
out
know,
how to
yeah.
when I keep this a little bit different, it's a little bit more. A little bit.
It's nice to have
like
someone that can help you with
basically, but
Yeah.
it's like a civil surveying thing.
Yeah.
It's been got his license before I got you, so. I was
Yeah.
really glad I got it while you
Sure.
were, you know,
My diet restrictions, I had to cut out caffeine
handle
too.
things in here.
Yeah.
I
So
found
I
a good
like
balance,
but
but like it started our brains for making
Yeah.
like lattes at my house.
Sat on the couch the other day and I'm like, "God,
But
can you come over
it's
here?"
hard,
and
it's
some
hard to
questions?"
the first time I
Well,
went
then
there,
it is good.
I did the contract. It's like the girls on the interview, and they're like, "Oh, she's going on, something my kid did that. We'll just- It's like, because there's just little things, little hiccups, you know,
Sure.
technology, like, you know, this and that and the other, what's the hang up?
I like it so far. It's
I'm
definitely.
more of a people person, talk to everybody more than the computer person,
Right, right.
But
just like
it's a
him.
matter of tweaking it in the area. I like it. So
Tell my husband to come on this team because I don't
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a friend, several friends who have
Operations,
that.
admin types, training, the analytical side.
He's the planner, you're the operation.
Did you get your other ones all done?
Not Sam.
You're more the planner?
He's the people person, he's the influencer.
Yeah, I just need to know how to get the slideshow back up on the TV.
Fails all his career.
It's,
It's a nice
the
compliment
TV
that way.
has the camera
More
screen
the
on it
person that
right
makes
now.
everything happen.
And I needed to show the.
How about you? What are you?
I'm a people person.
Yep.
I know, and you're there. Because
She says I've never met a stranger, but
It's a little black box.
And it's really 90% of the places we get it. He wants to do it, but I'm like, they have virtual assistants or.
They're just pallets sitting around.
Okay, what?
Zoom back up.
Are you mad at me?
No. Why do you think I'm ready?
Cause I broke it.
He's going to his daughter's and then he has a letter from the Navy and he has to print it.
that email in PDF or something.
I'm just gonna go bring it, put it in the mail.
Anything good in there?
I don't know, looking for water, but see one.
It's a water fountain.
If you have some there, I'm gonna look around.
Oh, yeah.
Just right Broadway,
No,
with the offers.
no, we just did that one.
I can find you
We
some.
didn't negotiate.
You're all right.
I thought it was,
Don't worry about it.
maybe it's tray one. We doing backwards? No, that's not it either. I thought I clicked on tray two.
Insulated or not. and then they have all-
There we go. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Why does it look like that though?
I don't know.
That it?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Round of applause for Haley. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Are we ready? Okay, perfect. Okay, so negotiating offers. Yeah, and that's where we're at. What are we doing today? What is negotiation? The 3 Ps of negotiation, negotiating tips, and then our recap and ahas. Negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life, which is very true. And I don't know. Okay, so obviously we've got negotiations, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this now. I don't know if we're gonna do it later or not, but we're gonna get out of the way now. What are some examples of negotiations that we've got in everyday life? mean, literally every day we've got negotiations. What are some examples of that?
What time for dinner? Which restaurant to go?
Yeah, that's a big one. That hurts. Okay, what else?
Or kids want to negotiate what they do and don't want to do.
Okay, cool. What else?
I got 6 of them.
Anytime you're gonna snooze your alarm.
Negotiating with ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, every single thought's a negotiation within ourselves. Do we pick up the phone and make our contacts? Do we get up in the morning when we say we're gonna get up and go do what we're gonna do? Are we gonna have a healthy meal? Once we figure out where we're gonna go, what are we gonna order, right? Are we gonna order what we know we should have? Or like me, am I gonna get a whole large pizza and eat it all by myself? Which one is it? We negotiate all the time. We negotiate with our kids, we negotiate with our spouses, we negotiate in traffic, we do all of that. So negotiating is a very, very normal part of life. When most people hear negotiating, especially in real estate, again, the perception is we're just headbutting all the time and we're fighting. Negotiating is not a fight. In my opinion, negotiating is conversations and figuring out what the other side wants. And if we are willing to be flexible on what we want so that they can get what they want and we can get what we want, right? So for example, the house I was talking about earlier, my guy wanted 450. And his number that he wasn't willing to come off of, we did come down, we came down to 425. And he was not willing to go below 425. We had offers at 200, 250, 300, 350, even 385. And he was not willing to negotiate that 425 number. So if we have another side that's not willing to get us what we want, and what they want does not line up with what we want, it's not a bad thing. It's not that we're fighting with somebody. It's just that we want two different things and we can't find a way to make the deal work, right? That's part of it. Buffalo Wild Wings is something that Rachel is not willing to negotiate on. She does not want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings. So if I want wings, we're going to Big Whiskies or Coyotes or wherever it is, but we're not going to Buffalo Wild Wings, right? So I can still get wings, but we're not going to Buffalo Wild Wings. These people can still get the house, but they've got to pay the price that we want them to pay, right? Everything is a negotiation. It is a conversation. It's not a fight. And in most, again, 95% of the time, negotiations aren't even that confrontational. It's just, we're just talking and we're trying to figure out what the other side wants and how we can get there. There's two options after an offer is presented. Okay, so the buyer has written an offer and presented it to the seller. There's actually three, if you remember what we just talked about. Our seller just accepts the offer and then we're moving through the process and we're going to closing. B, the offer is either rejected or countered. So this is where we have option 2 or 3. And both sides will normally lead to a negotiation. If it's countered, we're already in a negotiation. If the offer is rejected, the seller's saying no, the buyers can come back and more than likely we're going to get into a negotiation at that point because they are going to present a different offer to us. So in that negotiations, all we're doing is having conversations. There are times where you will have to argue your point and you will have to say, hey, here's why we want this. Here's why this makes sense. Make sure you point out all the logical reasons why what you want makes sense so the other side can fully understand you. If the other side does not fully understand you and what you want, there's a less likely of a chance that you're going to be able to meet in a spot where both parties feel like they are winning, right? So in negotiations, you have to be willing to say what you want in order to get what you want to get, right? Ask and you shall receive. So in that negotiation process, we're telling them what we want, they're telling us what they want, and we're finding a way to make it work to where both parties are happy. And hopefully we get that offer accepted at that point in time, and then we can move through the process and close. Again, there will be times in this business that you present an offer and the seller just straight up says no, and your buyers are not willing to change their terms, and vice versa. You're gonna have times where your seller is not willing to change terms to accommodate the buyer. That's okay. It's going to happen. We want to figure out a way to make it work. This is where we get to be creative and come up with other solutions. And that is a huge part of our job, is being a solution provider to figure out how to make things work. And there will be times where they just don't work and we've got to move on and find a different property or find a different buyer for the property that we're representing. Make sense? Okay, perfect. So we did this. Who do you negotiate with? You negotiate with your clients and the agent on the other side of the transaction, correct? Okay, so who has sold a listing in here? Who has had a listing and worked through it and sold it? Okay, perfect. Did you negotiate with your seller on the price that you're gonna list it at?
Yes.
Right? They said, we want 400,000 for this property. We come back and say it's only worth 80. We're not gonna list it for 400, we're gonna list it for 80, right? That's dramatic, but it's an example. So we negotiate with our clients on what they want. And it's not, again, it's not that we're butting heads with our clients. What we're doing is we are providing a realistic perspective of what the market is like and what the transaction process is like, so that our clients are put in the best position and they have their expectations set that's gonna set them up to go move towards the goal that they're ultimately moving towards, which is buying or selling a property, right? So we're negotiating with them, but ultimately what we're doing is we're setting their expectations for what the real world actually looks like so that they can make a logical decision. We can list the house at $400,000, but it's gonna sit on the market for 12 years and everyone's gonna be laughing at you in that time period. Is that what you want? Will you be happy if that's what we get? No, of course you won't. We've got to change our expectations, right? I put that very bluntly, don't actually say that to people. We're also negotiating with the agent on the other side of the transaction as well. You can see the graphic. We've got the seller and the buyer. We are here so they can be emotionally removed from that negotiation process. What I tell my clients is I'm here to be unemotional about this transaction process for you. What that allows them to do is to be emotional. They can get excited about things. They can be mad about things. They can be happy. They can be sad. They can do whatever they need to do. But at the end of the day, what I'm here to do is be emotionally removed. All I need to know is what their goal is and what they're willing to do to get there. So I know how to go do my job. Now, on the flip side, what I also tell them is I am gonna jump up and down for joy. I'm gonna cry with you guys. I'm gonna laugh with you guys. I'm gonna do all those things because I like the personal relationship aspect and I'm here for those relationships. I'm gonna be emotional with them, but in the transaction, I'm gonna be emotionally removed so that I make sure that we see all of the details logically and we can make the best decision possible for them. Make sense? Perfect. Okay, common points of negotiation, price and terms. Price is the number one thing that people are gonna want. A buyer's only pre-approved up to a certain amount. They can only pay a certain amount. If a property is priced too high, we've got to negotiate that price down to where our clients are paying a fair amount for the house. Terms, financial, time-based, both, whatever it is, inspection periods, closing date, acceptance timeline, whatever it is, everything in our contract and transaction process is negotiable. We can change anything we want to in that contract. We can make whatever adjustments that we need to make sure that both parties come to a win-win agreement and move forward to achieve their goals. And ultimately, again, that's our job, is to be solutions-based thinkers for our clients so we know how we can go out and get them what they really want. Make sense? What questions do we have? Okay, cool. 3 P's of negotiating: prepare, present, and position. So if we're preparing, preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiating process. Present, move into the negotiation process by presenting the offer. 3, position, move both parties closer until you have a full agreement. So what are we doing whenever we leave the property and we're going back to the office to write the offer? We're going over terms. We're talking to the listing agent to figure out what the other side wants, right? We're figuring out and we're preparing what terms we need to be on the lookout for. We then write the offer, and we go present it. So if I'm the buyer's agent, I have written the offer and I have the offer signed by the buyers, I am then presenting it to the listing agent. And if you remember, I said I like to call them and tell them what our offer is and explain why the terms of our offer are the way that they are. That helps me build a relationship with that listing agent. So he knows he or she can come to me and say, hey, here's our issue, here's what's popped up, here's what we've got to do with and talk through. And we know we can have that conversation, even if it's a hard one and we're not agreeing at the moment, or our parties aren't agreeing at the moment. We know that we can at least have the conversation in a civil way, and I can explain my side and they can explain their side. Position. So again, this is just a negotiating process and having conversations and figuring out what are our clients willing to give up and change, and what else might they want, and what is the other side willing to give up, and what do they want. So we know where both parties stand. We know what both parties want. That way we can move forward to find a solution that wins for everybody. Make sense? Okay, so in the prepare process, know your goal. Goal more than likely is to buy or sell a house, right? That's the big one. Then we can break those goals down into smaller goals. How much do we want to sell the house for? How much do we want to buy the house for? What time period do we want to close? What do we want our inspections to look like? Are we having an appraisal done? What are our financing terms? All of that stuff is all negotiable. So figure out what the big goal is and then break it down into smaller goals so we can see what is the number one thing that's going to move our needle for our clients. Make sense there? Next part is know your client. This should be done already at this point in time. We should have built enough rapport with our client to know what they want. This is done through the sellers and the buyers consults, or the strategy planning sessions, whatever it is that you want to call it, with them. We're sitting down and we're chatting with them about how the process works and what do they want. So we know what they want and they know how the process works. So then we have a map, so we know where we're going and how we're going to get there. Think ahead. So what kind of problems are we going to have? These can be solved if we're calling that listing agent and saying, hey, what's important to your client? What's important to your seller? Do they need a quick close? Is it the money that's the issue? Is it inspections? What all is it? And what issues could we run into in the future? 4, set clear expectations. This comes down to explaining the process to our clients and explaining to the other side what our clients are ultimately interested in and what they want to achieve. When we set clear expectations with our clients, those are going to be the smooth transactions. When we don't set our expectations with our clients, they text us out of the blue, a friend from high school, whatever it is, says, hey, I want to go look at this house, and we just show up and show them the house without doing any background or talking to them or anything like that. Those are the hard ones that's going to take the most time out of your day and ultimately away from your free time and your family and other opportunities to go earn more money. Set clear expectations with everybody, primarily your clients. 5, be informed, know the market, know what's going on in the area of the property, know what's happening, ask questions, don't be scared to ask the other agent questions. If you're selling a house at the lake or wherever it is, know what you're doing down there, but don't be afraid to go to the other agent and say, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And get their opinion so you can educate yourself and go back to your client and give them the most information that you can, right? Obey the laws, don't break any laws, don't call anybody you're not supposed to, obviously do all that stuff that we always get told. Know the documents inside and out. Again, read the documents, read what you're presenting to people, know what they're signing, so you know what problems to expect in the future. You can't expect somebody to know this that doesn't do it every day. That's what they hire us for. Know the documents that they're signing. Come on, there we go. Okay, so asking purposeful questions. We've talked about this already. However, in negotiating with a spouse or whoever it might be and where to go to dinner, how does that conversation go? What do you want to eat tonight? What would you normally respond if I asked you that? What would your spouse respond with? Where do you want to eat tonight? I know what my spouse would say. What does everybody else's spouse say?
I would say Black Creek.
Okay, you're ahead of the game. You're very lucky, because I think everybody else says, I don't care. What do you want? Right? Well, what kind of food do we want? I don't know. Typically, it's all the same. I don't know. Okay, fine. Then we're yelling at each other. We just end up in the Wendy's drive-thru or whatever. We don't normally do that. I'm joking. However, questions are so important, especially in this process, because it allows us to see inside of the other person's brain. Right? They can't read our brain and we can't read their brain. We have to ask questions, and a lot of the times they don't even know what information they need to give us. And you'll hear a lot of people say a lot of the time, and you sit down with a first-time home buyer and say, what questions you have? And they say, I don't even know what questions to ask, right? That's where we have to know how the process works so that we can ask them the questions about the process And by asking questions about the process, we can see what they don't know. And by seeing what they don't know, we know what we have to teach them and what we have to tell them so that they are set up for success. Make sense there? This is the most important part of the whole thing, especially when you're meeting with your clients and getting to know them, asking them as many questions as possible. And the whole saying is go 3 deep with questions. So if I ask you a question, how much do you want to spend on a house? And they're gonna say, what? So how much, if you're a buyer, I'm sitting down with you for the first time, how much do you want to pay for your house that we're about to go find?
350.
$350, okay. What's important about $350?
It's my pre-approval.
Okay, perfect. So on your pre-approval, were you looking at the total purchase price or were you more looking at monthly payment?
Monthly payment,
Okay, what's important about monthly payment to you?
so maintain the same like 1,700,000 a month.
Okay, what does that do for you?
Other safety.
Okay, perfect. Does it allow you to keep living the same life you're living now, but also purchase a house?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The whole idea, and that was probably more than 3, but we're asking questions about the questions that we asked already, so we can get to the root of why is this specific thing important to us. We have a pre-approval for $350. That's really all that we need to know because we know that a lender has gone through that. But if we can continue to dig and ask questions, we're gonna get to know them better to see what's truly important to them. So we know when that house that pops up at 375 that they send us, that they wanna go look at, we can go right back to, hey, your pre-approval's over only for 350, and here's why. I don't want you to have to change your lifestyle the way that you're living now and not have the experiences that you wanna have with your family and friends in order to just have a cool house. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. It's as easy as that. Asking questions lets you get to know people and build a relationship with them, and that's how they then learn to trust you. Make sense to everybody? Okay. Open versus closed questions. So does everybody know what open-ended versus closed-ended means? Somebody give me an example of an open-ended question.
How are you today?
I'm well, how are you? Good. Give me an example of a closed-ended question.
How many kids do you have?
There you go. 0 right now. That's why we're trying to go eat at Buffalo Wild Wings. Are you good today? Yes, I'm good today. That doesn't start a conversation, right? So asking open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. The open-ended questions allow us for them to go share more with us and then allow us to go ask more questions, right? So somebody says, hey, I want to sell my house. Okay, when do you want to sell your house by? We go into it with a closed-ended question. They can tell us by the end of September next year. Great, what's important about the end of September next year? Then they can really open up to us and tell us what is important and what are they doing. Our closed-ended questions give us a quick answer of, are we buying or selling a house? Yes or no? Maybe. Okay, great. Let's go ask more open-ended questions for them to tell us what they're looking for and what they're wanting and how their mind works and what they're thinking. So we know what other questions to ask to get to the bottom of, yes, this makes sense, or no, this does not make sense. Does that make sense? Okay, I'll let you guys get your pictures. Good? Perfect. Okay, what and why questions. So what would happen if and why is this important to you? These what and why are the 2 most powerful questions for anything. Give us the what and give us the direction of which we're going. And then the why allows us to dig deeper into that direction, right? So what would happen if you did buy a house? Any answer? Well, then we're starting to build equity into our future. We have more space for our kids or what kids might be. We get a bigger dinner table so we can bring home Buffalo Wild Wings and she can have her Wendy's and we can both be happy. What would happen if we got this? Great. What's important about that big dinner table? What's important about that big backyard? What's important about building equity for your future? And why is this important to you? Allows us to really dive in and get to know them and build a relationship with them. The more that we know about them, it's going to show that you listen and you care about what they want, right? We've all been sold to, we've all had the telephone scammers call us. We know when we're being sold to, right? Our job here is to build a relationship with somebody so that trust us, and by doing that, we can show them that we are experts in our field. By showing them that we're experts in our field and that we care about them, that's what creates a lifelong customer, right? As well as the referrals that they're gonna send us. So what would happen if, and why is this important to you? Two incredibly important questions. Okay, so we're gonna work with a partner on this, and we'll do this out loud, and then you guys can do it. If anybody ever wants to do this, by the way, and I'll write my name and number up here afterwards. So if you ever want to role play, we're gonna work with a partner, we're gonna read the scenario, and then list clarifying questions to ask your client and apply new knowledge of open and ended questions. Is this supposed to be in your, you guys have documents for this that give you packets? Okay, we're gonna do this role play at the end too. Okay, so step 2, we're presenting to our other agent. So best practice when presenting, call the other agent again. You can text them and get the point across. I prefer calling them because you get so much more information out of them, and the more information you get, that's the more power that you have to go negotiate better terms for your clients. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. So in those what and why questions, you can understand when people are thinking, right? When we talk and you say, hey, here's what this is, what do you think about that? And they pause for a second. Instead of just saying, yep, love it, let's do it. They pause and they got to think about it. You can tell that they're thinking about that. Then we can go and ask them, hey, it seemed like you're thinking about this. Tell me what you were thinking, kind of deal. We can dig into what people are thinking, and then we understand what they're wanting or what they're trying to understand, and then we can help them better. Keep quiet once you present an offer. So again, we're presenting to the listing agent, hey, here's our offer. Here's why we're doing this. Stop talking and let them respond to you. They're gonna tell you their objections. They're gonna tell you what the seller's thinking. They're gonna tell you what the seller's willing or not willing to do. And all of that is ammo for you to use later on to help your clients negotiate a better deal for them. Listen carefully to what's important to the other party. Again, ask them what's important, shut up and let them tell you. Stay calm and relaxed. You will get disagreed with in this business, just like every other portion in life, just like when I wake up in the morning to go work out and I snooze my alarm and I say, hey, I really don't want to do that, right? We disagree with ourselves all the time. We're going to get disagreed with by other people as well. This is not an emotional transaction. That's what we are being hired for. That we are not emotionally attached to this. At points in time, it will feel like we are being emotionally attacked by somebody else. You're not. This is an unemotional transaction. You are working for somebody else. This is not your home. This is not your money. You're here to do a job, and you do that job best when you are calm and relaxed. We don't want to go screaming and cussing at other agents. That's not good for anybody, right? And if you get screamed at and cussed at, stay cool and calm and be the professional one. That's the one that wins every single time. Emotions never win in this. Focus on the customer's needs and give your offer the best chance. So part of this, when we're receiving feedback from the other agent, we need to be calm and relaxed and unemotional. There are times where we have to go present our customers' needs, not in a way that's going to put them in a bad position, like we talked about earlier, obviously. But whatever the circumstances might be, we might have some buyers that are in a really tough time. And we've been looking for houses for a long time and we just can't find the right one. This is the perfect one for them. They're a young family. They're going to have a kid in a month and they really need to get into this house and they need to do it ASAP. Is there any way, would your sellers come down on price a little bit to help us out? Use those emotions as a tool a little bit here. We're using them to explain what we're doing ultimately is we're explaining our side, right? By saying that, I'm not trying to create a sob story for my clients that have been looking at houses forever and about to have a baby and need a house now. But what I am doing is I'm telling that other side, here's what's important to us. And if I'm telling that listing agent probably doesn't care that they're about to have kids in a month and they don't care that they've been looking at houses for 2 years. So is half the world, right? But what that does is that it gives that listing agent ammo for the chance that he's going to go back to a seller and say, hey, here's a good offer. It's not what we were wanting list price wise, but it's pretty close. And here's the people that are buying it. They're about to have a baby and they need it really fast. The chance that we can give that little piece of info and put it in that brain for that seller to turn around and say, oh, okay, well, that's awesome. Good for them. They're about to have a baby. I want them to get this house, right? We're helping explain what our party's situation is in a manner that helps them get what they want. And you can use emotions to do that. Does that all make sense? Okay. Number 3, position. So we're acknowledging and affirming common ground. Again, here's where it feels like we're arguing or there's confrontation involved. It's not emotional. It is one side says they want one thing, the other side says they want another thing, and they don't always align equally, right? There's a $400,000 house listed. I can go make an offer for $100,000. Seller's probably not gonna take it. It probably doesn't work for them, right? So what do we have in common? Hey, you have a house that you wanna sell, and you have the house that I want to buy. We already have one point of common ground. Now what can we snowball off of that to make it work for everybody? Ask your what and how questions. How do we get this thing done? We're talking to the other agent right now. And we're saying, hey, what is important about this to your clients? How do we go about changing this so my clients can get what they want? Again, the other side, the other agents are there to do the same thing you're doing, which is get their client's house sold or bought for them. Let's work together and let's figure out how we get that done. Know that positioning is a process and know when to walk away. So A, position ourselves in a negotiation. We've got to put ourselves in a spot where we can move forward or we can move back, right? The other side is doing the exact same thing. If I'm set up here and we're only going forward or back, right? This is not chess where we can go side to side or checkers where we can go diagonal. We're going forward or we're going back is the way that I see this. What we do have to do, and our people, this is a weird analogy, I know, but our people are our game pieces and they're going forwards and back. We are there to pick them up and move them around. Okay, so we can move them around. They cannot move around on their own. We as the agents have to get them in the same line so we can move forward together and meet in the middle. Make sense? I don't know why that's the analogy that comes into my head, but it is. The second part of that, know when to walk away. If there's something that's gonna put your people in a bad spot, we're not gonna push something on them that's gonna put them in a bad spot, right? They've told us what they want. We are fiduciaries. We are there to get them what they want, but only in a manner that makes sense, that's legal and puts them in a good position to move forward in the future. If there is anything about it that is gonna put them in a bad situation, if their monthly payment, I bring a house to you at $350, you wanted to stay at $1,700 a month, and this house that I'm showing to you, you're gonna have a $5,000 payment a month on it, that's not gonna be good for you, right? We're not gonna be in a good position. You're not gonna get to go on your vacations or do whatever it is that you wanna do in your free time. You're gonna have to change your lifestyle. We're not here to put our clients in that position. We have to explain that to them. And there will be times where you have to reel them back in and say, hey, I don't think this is gonna set you up for the best future. I don't think this is the right decision to make. It's their decision to make though, and you have to let them make it. But if there's situations where they are not gonna be put in a good position by moving forward on something, you have to make sure that you tell them and give them your opinion. Might keep you from selling a house that day, but it's gonna build a lifelong client and somebody who's gonna send you a lot of other referrals because they are gonna trust you a lot after not selling them a house when you could have. Make sense? Don't scare them though. Go back to that. Don't make stuff up and scare them. And all that. There's no sense to create issues where there are not already issues. Okay, so same thing here. We'll do our role play after and we'll work through all these for everybody that wants to. Okay, ahas, more so questions about that portion. Prepare, present, and position. Anybody have any questions there? Okay, perfect. Negotiation tips. Be professional and be kind. Don't be mean to anybody, don't scream at anybody, don't cuss at anybody, you're good, yeah. Especially no cussing, unless you have a personal relationship with the other agent. Be professional, be kind, don't be emotional here. It makes things so much more complicated when there's emotions involved. And you having to tell other agents how to do their job. It just doesn't work for anybody. You're gonna talk to those agents on the phone, just don't be those agents. It just gets us nowhere and it just wastes time. Keep your goal in mind, pay attention to your communication and tone with anyone involved in a transaction. You will be frustrated in this industry. There will be times that you will be frustrated. There will be times that things do not go your way. There will be times where contracts fall apart and stuff does not happen in a perfect world. You don't have to jump for joy every time a contract falls through. You also don't have to scream and cuss at somebody every time a contract falls through. Be professional, it happens, figure out a solution. If we can make it work, great. If not, great, let's go find a better situation to be in. Continually refer to your client's motivation when speaking with them. Again, you want your monthly payment to be $1,700 a month. We don't want to go take on $5,000 because you're gonna have to change your life, and that vacation that you're going to in a couple months, you're not gonna be able to take on if you buy this house, right? Vice versa. Hey, this is a great house. This is the best value in the neighborhood. If this is the house that your clients need to have, or want to have, and there's not gonna be another property that pops up like that, don't be scared to share that either. And put them in a position, because they're gonna be really disappointed 6 months down the road, and nothing else pops up, right? Okay? Don't reveal too much, listen more than talk, keep your client's motivation close to your chest. Listen more than you talk. I heard this growing up. My grandmother used to say, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and God gave them, so use them in proportion, right? Listen more than we talk. Ask a question, shut up, and let the other side answer. Same thing with your clients. You don't have to be the one always talking and shoving information down their throat. Ask them a question, figure out what they're thinking and what they want. If we need to readjust expectations to more of a realistic view of what's happening in the world, we can do that. But let them tell you what they want, and then go figure out how to get it for them. Don't be attached to the outcome. Again, was anybody licensed in 2020 to 2022 when we had all the multiple offer stuff going on? Okay, so we wrote several offers for buyers before one got accepted, right? And it wasn't uncommon to go write 6, 7, 8 offers before we could get a buyer under contract. We learned how to be very emotionally unattached through the COVID period when we were writing multiple offers. Luckily, praise the Lord, we don't have to do that as much anymore. We might only have to go write 1 or 2 before we can get somebody under contract. What we did learn to do is be emotionally unattached from the outcome, because we knew that we were going to be writing 6 to 8 offers before a buyer would actually get under contract. So not every offer that you write is going to go under contract. And not every transaction that goes under contract is actually going to close. There will be those transactions that fall through. Our job is to minimize the amount that actually do fall through. So we're here to be emotionally unattached, be logical about our thinking, and put our clients in a good position to make decisions. That was really fast. Okay, what questions you got there on negotiating tips? Okay, come up with something, because the next slide's the end. I'm just kidding. Okay. So we're gonna blow through those. Same thing here. You guys can do this after you're grown-ups. Okay, what are some questions that you guys have about this? Because you've been through a transaction, so you know that not every transaction goes through and closes, right? Yeah, and that's tough. And it happened, same thing. My first one didn't close. It was Ethel Kerbo. It was a whole deal. We had to fall through appraisal issue, and yeah, anyway. What are some issues that you all are dealing with? I know that you're not quite licensed yet, but what are some other issues that you all are dealing with in the market today? What are some real world problems? Or thoughts or questions or concerns or?
I've been through stress because of the transactions and everything, deals falling through. And so how do you deal with this personally? Because I've been asking several different agents to see which way would be the best for me to handle it.
We're on Zoom, so I'm not gonna tell you my way of coping with stress here. I'm joking. That was a joke. Please laugh and understand that was a joke. My wife probably won't. No, honestly, you learn to deal with it. You learn that, and then you get emotionally unattached. The more transactions you have fall through, the more you understand that, hey, not everyone is going to close. The main thing is not giving up on those transactions and knowing that, hey, if there are gonna be some that fall through, we just have to go find more, right? Honestly, dealing with that stress up front with your clients and setting expectations saves you a lot of stress on the back end, and explaining them that not every contract we write will go through. In a perfect world with buyers, we are gonna go see one house and it's their dream house, and we write an offer and the seller accepts it, and we don't have an issue with inspections or appraisals, and we go close and everybody's happy. That is an ideal world. If we can explain to both our buyers and our sellers that this is real world and contracts fall through, they will be less emotionally attached to the outcome as well until closing day. And that's a conversation that I like to have with my people is, hey, it's not over until it's over, even when we have a signed contract. If we're listing a house, hey, look, we're having some more fall throughs. Buyers are able to negotiate a little bit more. We might have to do some more repairs on inspections, and we might have to be flexible on listing price. And where we accept an offer at. And if we can set their expectations in a way at the very front side of things to where they know that there is a chance of things falling through, as long as they can trust that we will have the answers on the back end of how to figure out how to move forward and that we've done it before, they will trust us to take the lead there. And if something bad does happen, as long as they trust us that we know what we're doing enough to figure out a solution here and that everything's gonna be okay on the back end, even if it means us going to find a different house. As long as they have that trust in us, they're gonna have more peace of mind. And if and when something happens and does fall through, they are gonna be less emotionally attached and they're gonna be more prepared emotionally for something to fall through, which then can take stress off of us. We still care about our people. We're still competitive. We still have the drive to make everything work and to be creative and to have the outcome that we desire, just like every other human on the planet. But if we know that on the back end of things, we are not saving lives. There was a cool little Facebook post on this. I don't know who saw it, but we're not surgeons, right? The world's not gonna stop if something bad pops up, right? We're involved in something that's incredibly important to a lot of people and a lot of people's future financial status. So it's very important, and I don't mean to demean or downplay the importance that we play in this. But if something bad pops up, it's not a life or death situation, right? For these people, there's gonna be other options and we can go find solutions for them. B, there's more deals out there for us to go do and make money for our family. Jen Davis says it a lot, and I think she got it from Gary Keller, but if you have enough deals coming in, the ones that are bad matter less. I mean, they take up less mind share, right? Is that true from your experience? Yeah. The more you have going on, this sounds silly, the more stressors you have going on, the less each stressor stresses you out. And so that's where I would say if we can really shift our focus and thinking to going to find more deals, ultimately we'll be less stressed. Now, that's not an excuse to go out and do a bad job for everybody, right? We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna go drop the ball for people and all that. However, if we can be really, really focused over here, the stuff that is stressful and drags us down is not gonna drag us down as much. So did that answer your question at all, or did I just totally ramble for like 5 minutes? That needed about 30
it makes
seconds?
sense.
Okay, cool. What other questions? What other things are we dealing with? Or thinking about, or wanting to do, or what do you guys have for lunch today?
What's the best day during the Thanksgiving weekend to have open houses?
I would say Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
Family day's done, they got their shopping done. Then we
As
settle down.
far
by
away
Sunday.
from Thanksgiving as you possibly can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what I would say. Do what?
And Black Friday.
And Black Friday, stay away from Thanksgiving. I'm not holding an open house on Thanksgiving Thursday. I'm gonna be cooking a turkey. I'm not going Black Friday shopping on Friday. I will be sleeping in more than likely. And so will everybody else. And I would assume Saturday is probably gonna be travel days for a lot of people and they'll get back home and get settled and then Sunday'd be your day.
Okay,
That's what I would
thank
do.
you.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, cool. I will write my number up here, and if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out at any point in time. I have the handwriting of a 2-year-old, so if you can't read it, ask me what it says. Thank you, guys. That's all I got for you today. Appreciate you being interactive and chatting and engaging. It makes it way easier on our end, so.
Wow, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're done way early, aren't we? Cool. Rock and roll. Okay. If you guys ever need anything, take my number down, call me, whatever it is. My office is up here in the little, I don't even know what it is, that little side hallway up there. So come find me and happy to help however we can. Okay, have a good day. Go make your contacts. Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can get this.
So Trey, how are you pricing things right now? Like, I have a listing coming up
Huh?
in Greystone and there's, like, are you still doing what you think is for in the last few months?
If I can have comps in the past 2 months, that's what I prefer. You can do it out to the beginning of the year, but 2 months is really what is accurate. So much fell over. So I'm looking at it from 3 angles: A, closed comps; B, pending comps; C, active comps. 2-3 years ago, we didn't have any we didn't have any active comps to price against. We might have pending comps that sold in a day, and that was our best kind of measurement for active stuff. And then we had closed comps to know where we needed to get at for an appraisal standpoint, but it typically sold for over that anyway. What we're going to have to do, what we've been doing that we've had success with, and we explain this to our sellers, is we have to explain the process of pricing competitively against what is actively on the market. So how we priced it 2 years ago was we priced it based off of the closed comps. So we could just get in the ballpark of where price was, and then the market was gonna take it wherever it wanted to after that. Now, it's not for what ballpark of price range do you think you'll be in?
475.
Yeah, so even there, that's a higher price point still, but even then, you're gonna have 2, 3, 4 houses that you're competing with. Whereas 2 years ago, we didn't have any houses that we would be competing with that is actively on the market. So we have to be and if you think in price brackets, buyers look in price brackets, right? In the price bracket that we're in, so that 475, so 400 to 500, we have to be the best priced house in that price bracket, or else we have to move price brackets, okay? Typically, we want to be, if you look at a scale of condition and price, we want to be the best condition for the lowest price, okay? So that when those buyers go look at it, they've got there might only be 1 buyer per week for that price range. You have to be the best house in order to win. And if you don't, you have 4 houses this week that you're competing with. 1 of them is going to get bought this week. Next week, 2 more are going to come on the market. So you're competing with 3 others right now, or 4 others right now, but next week you're going to be competing with 5. The week after that, you're going to be competing with 6. The week after that, 7, 8, 9. And so we have to do price adjustments right now as well. And we do them quickly. Personally, I like 2 weeks. However, average days on market has gone up to 35 or 40, wherever it's at right now. You can also make the mistake of doing a price adjustment too early. And I suggest, and I prefer price adjustments that are big enough to make a difference, right? So I'm gonna make stuff up here, but if we do a price drop by $2,500, that does nothing, right? We've got to be doing it. Even if it's a $230,000 listing, we better be doing at least a $10,000 price drop. Because $2,500 is not enough to make a buyer move, right?
Put it in a new price bracket either.
Correct. It doesn't, and so that's the whole point here, is putting it in the right price bracket. And that doing those price drops, you have to get it into the lower price bracket in order to make any sort of difference at all. Pricing it right from the very beginning is the most important thing, and sets you up for the most success, and you'll be able to attest to this. But if you can look in that price bracket, and here's where it's nice now that we can take sellers' active comps and show them what we're actually looking at. And I like the analogy of there's only 1 buyer this week that's going to buy a house. Do you want them to buy our house or somebody else's house? Answer is always our house, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look at these comps, compare it to our house, realistically, not because you love this house and you raise your kids in this house, but look at these comps compared to our house unemotionally, which house would you pick if we're priced at 475? And the answer might be us. The answer might be 475. You might be right on the money, but if we're trying to reset expectations, and price that house where it really needs to be priced at, we've got to be prepared to go in, explain to them why the price that we would list their house at puts it at house number one. And then if it's, what we can do is go provide feedback on the market every week or every 2 weeks. Right now, it's probably every week to go back and say, hey, here's the showings that we got, because we'll still get 1 or 2 showings a week, more than likely. If we can go back to them a week later and say, hey, we got 2 showings, nobody wrote any offers. Here's what happened in the market. And you can go show them what has gone under contract since you've listed the house. And what that does is that shows them why they got beat and what house beat them. And it makes it very, very black and white clear, this buyer preferred this house. So we know that we are now either house number one, or we need to do a price improvement because we are no longer priced number one, or house number one, and we can compare ourselves to what is now actively what's actively on the market. So 2 things for our sellers now that the houses are not selling in 2 hours. We have to give them feedback on the market, and that I'd like for that to happen at least weekly. So that we can go back and say, hey, here's what came on the market since we listed. Here's what is now our competition. B, here's what's gone under contract since we listed that was in our price bracket. Here's what beat us. So if we need to make if we need to change our strategy after this week of being on the market, and we saw 2 other houses go under contract and 2 more come on the market, we know that, and the sellers are gonna figure it out pretty quickly. They're not stupid people. We've got to go adjust our price to reflect that we are the best condition in that price bracket. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
that's good. Haven't done that yet. Come back with what went under contract.
That's very, it's very, very helpful to help them understand what's going on. See you guys.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because another thing is, okay, so the assessor's office has it listed at like 4,800 square feet.
Yeah.
But the last 2 listings had their house listed as per seller's prior listing, 4,000 square feet. Is that, what would you do in that instance? Would you get it measured, or would you just go with the 4,000?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Put that on the measurement disclaimer, or
Not necessarily, because that extra 800 square feet makes a huge price difference.
only they know it's not, we're all on each other.
Well, and we've got to go put it where we think it's
Yeah.
truly at. So, I
I
mean,
think it's actually probably a little under 4,000, so
yeah,
the 4,000 helps us.
then put it as
The 48
4,000.
seems like,
Put-
I was
put
just
whatever
talking
the
to
assessor
Dana
side.
about that.
Yeah,
Just
put
get
it,
back in their court.
put it at the highest square footage you can, but if it's not 4,800 square feet, don't put 4,800 square feet. You know, if it's 39.96,